Hi everyone, so my name is Chelsea Marseille and I'll be presenting on my Haitian heritage. So I think before I get into my ancestry and my Haitian heritage, it's important to know demographics of the Haitian people and like Haiti as a whole. The capital of Haiti is Port-au-Prince, the largest city is Port-au-Prince, and the population worldwide is 11.26 million. Um, so in the United States, Haiti is the fourth largest foreign-born group from the Caribbean. And after the 2010 earthquake, that created an increase and a spike within Haitian immigrants in the United States and went from 587,000 to 687,000. So it's important to note that the two most largely populated states in the United States for Haitian immigrants is New York and Florida. My parents moved to New York, but I also have a lot of family in Florida. Haitian immigrants account for 49%. 49% of Haitian immigrants are in Florida and 19% are in New York. And I think this was a good statistic to put in that in 2018, about 79% of Haitians 25 and older had a high school degree, and that is higher than the foreign-born population and Caribbean immigrant population. The overall Haitian diaspora is around 1.2 million in the United States, and that is not only Haitian immigrants, but Haitian people of Haitian ancestry as well, so someone like me. So a fun fact, Haiti was the first successful slave revolt in 1804, and the Haitian people helped other Latin American countries become liberated as well. So the Haitian people were basically the catalyst for independence within Latin America and the Caribbean. So this is a map. Haiti is obviously in the Caribbean, Latin America. It's like 90 miles, or like 90 or so miles off the coast of Florida. And it shares the island of Dominican Republic. Getting into my family history. So on my father's side, my paternal grandmother was the very first person to come to America in 1974. And she immigrated to Rockland, New York after my grandmother followed my grandfather in 1980. And after my grandparents, their children, my aunts and uncles slowly came after them, and eventually came my dad in 1988. So onto my mom's side. So my mom came to America in 1987 in Brooklyn, New York, to Brooklyn, New York. And she had a few cousins who already lived there. So she was able to live with her sister first, and then she like moved around like to live with her cousins. And my mother recalls her first time in America as like very, very difficult, very, very different and difficult, as she shared a room and she had no place to put her clothes. And it was a whole new culture that she wasn't used to. And my mother was able to bring my maternal grandmother to America in 1996. So my mother moved to Rockland County, New York in 1990 after encouragement of her cousin, who said that it'd be better if she moved upstate. So my mom did. And that's where she met my father. And he was able to find another place for her to live in the same county. So hardships my parents faced. This is a quote from my dad. I was lost for a while. I needed to learn a new language, a different culture. Then I realized America is a melting pot, especially in New York with so many different ethnic groups. So I thought that was very important to put in, and how he felt when he first came to America. And my mother, her experience is something that is very vivid to me. So she described that on her second week of being in America, she was on her way to her first job and it was snowing, and it was her first time experiencing snow, because if you know Haiti in the Caribbean, it's an average of like 80 something every day there, and it never snows. So she was really overwhelmed, and she had never experienced snow before, and she had to take the train from Brooklyn to Manhattan at her first job, which was a factory job where she got paid $3.35 an hour. So Haitian traditions. When my parents met in Rockland County, they obviously started a family, and then they moved a little bit more upstate to Orange County, and that's where they started their family and had my brothers and myself. So Let's start with Haitian Independence Day. So Haitian Independence Day is the January 1st. That's how Haiti declared their independence, January 1st, 1804. So Haitian people drink squash soup, or in Creole is soup jumu. So basically, soup jumu is like I just said, squash soup. And before Haiti was independent, squash soup was a delicacy that only like the white masters could eat, and the enslaved Haitian people couldn't eat. So when Haiti became independent, the first thing they did was cook soup jumu and ate it for themselves, and that was a symbol of their freedom. So first communion is a big thing in Haitian culture. It's a very big event. So the main religion in Haiti is Catholicism. Like 80% of Haitians are Catholic, and 20% are Protestant. The first communion is very big in Haitian culture. There's a big party with food. You invite your whole family, and there's usually like one or two, there's usually like more than two cakes for the communion. And like there's a bunch of pictures that are taken. I couldn't find pictures for my communion because they're at home, but there was a lot of pictures. And my older brothers also had the same thing, a big first communion, and a big party where we invited our family and celebrated the first communion of me and my brothers. So after that, it's Easter. So Easter Sunday, my mom cooks, in English it's called white soup beans with white rice, but in Creole it's sauce pois avec du riz blanc. So that is basically just like beans blended together with fried rice. And so then we eat it with beets on Easter. And so beets represents the blood of Jesus Christ, basically. And that is eaten together with it. And we go to church on Easter Sunday, and we dress in like very formal attire and like never casual on Easter Sunday. And on every birthday, my mom pours champagne on me and my brother. Any person's birthday, she's pouring champagne in our heads. And that's like a tradition in Haitian culture, like you're moving into new life, moving into a new year of life. This is another fun fact. So, did you know that the color purple is seen as a bad omen in Haitian culture? In most cases, it could represent death or negative energy. So, never give a Haitian person something purple. And this is my upbringing and how that has influenced me. So my culture for language. So I grew up speaking both Haitian Creole and English. My grandma didn't speak any English, so I spoke Haitian Creole with her. I spoke English Haitian Creole with my parents. And for music, I grew up listening to Haitian music, specifically compa music. So with compa music, there's compa dancing. So I grew up learning how to do compa dance and always listening to compa music. So Haitian values, I I'm very knowledgeable when it comes to Haitian values. I grew up being respectful of others, especially respectful of the elders. In Haitian culture, when you go to a party, um, or when you see family, you're expected to greet every single person in the room and not miss a single person. Um, and in Haiti, I think empathy is a very big thing. And I use an example like such as my mother, because she constantly worries about her family in Haiti. And I believe empathy can be very evident in Haitian culture. And I'm at ease knowing that when it comes to relating with others, I can carry that trait of empathy. So this is cultural values continued. In Haitian culture, children are often thought to be gifts of God and gifts from God. And Haitian mothers will tend to go above and beyond for their children, but on the downside, they can be neglectful of their needs. And there was a very good article that discussed multiculturalism, especially specifically with Haitians in the United States in regards to mental health. And the research study basically collected data on depression in Haitian immigrant women in the United States. And a quote in this article that resonated with me is pain in the body is without a doubt the most common form of depression that one encounters while working with Haitian immigrants. So since I grew up in a Haitian family, I would see this a lot with my parents and especially my mom especially. And usually like the interactions between Haitian people, like when they're asking, oh, like how's everything? Like in Creole, they respond back, oh, everything's fine. I just have this pain here, I have this pain here. So I found that really interesting. I found this article that basically explains how pain can be translated into depression. And how this Haitian American psychologist was able to treat that depression. So I found that very interesting. And another thing that this article brought up is that it is confirmation for immigrant women to neglect their needs and put their faith entirely in God, and to neglect that they have depression and to not actually go and seek medical attention. And this all leads to who I am today. So I grew up in a white predominant town, and I always knew I was different from the rest. I When I grew up, um, I knew I was different from others. Like I was very conscious when I brought my Haitian food to school, because I used to get teased for it when I was younger. I wouldn't speak, like when I would talk to my grandma on the phone, like I would try to talk less. So as when I grew up, like in elementary school, I was very aware of being Haitian and how I was the only one of the only Haitian people in my class. But as I grew up and I went through middle school and went to high school, I became very proud of who I am. And on Spirit weekdays, where it was like USA's International Day, I decided to come fully in Haitian attire, down to the flag. And I believe suppressing my culture and my stages of life did more harm for me than good. I just not to fuck the way I was raised. I was raised to be very proud of my Haitian heritage, to be very proud to be Haitian. And that's something I wouldn't trade for the world. And I realized as I learned more about Haiti's history that there's nothing more I can be more proud of, and that my heritage is unique to me, and my ancestors' blood will always continue to run through my veins. And thank you for listening to me and tuning in for my presentation. And yeah.